Now that I have your attention, let's talk about a very common form of abuse called love bombing. But first, give me a second. You've probably heard of the phrase love bombing. It's one of the commonly used mental health terms that's currently being abused on social media right now. Fortunately, this has made all of us much more aware of the term love bombing, but unfortunately, love bombing has been so misused that it's bastardized what the actual meaning of the word is. And so, that's why I'm here. What's going on, everybody? My name is John Burt. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and therapist extraordinaire. And welcome to another session with the world's second best therapist, me, the chocolate therapist. So the question we're answering today is, what is love bombing? Let's start by breaking down the basic textbook definition of what love bombing actually is. Then we'll work our way down and fill in the gaps. Love bombing is the intense and overwhelming initial courting process that an abuser uses to draw their victim into a relationship. The love you're given at the beginning of the relationship is purposely so intense that it distracts you from seeing any red flags later on in the relationship. Love bombing is a common tactic used by narcissists, psychopaths, and overall just shitty people to distract you from seeing their true colors. I classify these individuals as shitty people because if you're willing to love bomb someone, that means you have no problem using and manipulating others in order to have your needs met. The more trauma a person has in their past, meaning that they have a history of being abandoned, rejected, and disappointed in their past relationships, then the easier it will be to get them in the palm of your hand. So, this gives us a good foundation to work off of, but let's dive a little deeper. It's one thing to hear the definition of love bombing, but it's completely different to actually see the process unfold in front of us. What does the process of love bombing actually look like? Well, let me show you. Let's say you meet someone new. You have a captivating moment together and exchange phone numbers. The next morning, you receive the all too coveted good morning text. Good morning, beautiful. This is going to feel good to you, and it will set the stage for more seductive foreplay to ensue. As the day continues, you receive more tantalizing text messages. Hey, sugar tits, I just can't get my mind off you. I've been thinking about you all day to the point where I can't even concentrate on my work. I must see you. Enthralled by both his directness and charm, you agree to take him up on his offer to go to dinner. As you can see, Mr. Casanova here is really laid it on thick, and this is naturally going to make you feel giddy, desired, and wanted. And that's his plan, because we as humans all have a part of us that yearns to be wanted. So, let me stop right here and let's reflect on what's happening. At this point, the love bomber isn't doing anything too crazy or special. They're simply whispering sweet nothings in your ear. And here's the important thing about this stage of love bombing. If you're a healthy person, and I'm defining healthy in this case as someone who has an established, strong sense of self-worth, then hearing all these lovely words will feel nice. But it's not gonna do anything crazy like make your knees buckle. But let's talk about the person this is gonna work on. I'm looking at the person with a history of trauma. Trauma in the form of rejection and abandonment. This abandonment could be at the hands of your parents, your friends, or any past relationship. The point is that if you face consistent disappointment in your relationships, you will most likely struggle with the identity of not being worthy, of not being important, and maybe feeling like you're unlovable. And this is what makes you vulnerable to be exploited by someone looking to love bomb you. Because you're not used to getting this type of special treatment and attention, it will feel especially nice. And because it feels so nice, you won't want to do anything that will jeopardize such a promising relationship that's in the making. Going back to our love bombing scenario, Mr. Casanova has slithered his way into your life, and you guys have agreed to go out to dinner. Mr. Casanova has Riz, so he doesn't just take you to some bum-ass McDonald's on the corner. Instead, he takes you to the nicest, fanciest restaurant in town. After being wowed by the restaurant, you go back to his place, and he proceeds to blow your back out and gives you the greatest fuck of your life. The fancy dinner combined with the amazing sex culminates into you having one of the best nights of your life. And the next morning, when you've gathered your stuff and you leave his house, you're captivated by the amazing time you had with him. So, I can hear some of you guys right now saying, this doesn't sound like abuse, John. This actually sounds great. Fancy dinners, getting my back blown out. This sounds amazing. And you're right. I really can't argue with you. This does sound great. Except for me, getting my back blown out doesn't really sound like a fun time at all. Anyway, love bombing by design is going to feel great at the beginning. The relationship will feel electric. It's going to be tailored to scratch every itch that you've ever wanted your relationship to scratch. And for the next 6 weeks to 6 months, you and your love bomber are going to be spending a lot of time together. He's going to be intensely seducing and courting you. The loving gestures will only continue to get bigger and bigger. And with time, he will make you feel like the center of his world. And when he's done this for a couple of weeks, then the next stage of his plan will begin. And the love bomber is going to start wanting you to make big commitments into the relationship. You guys will start talking about moving in together, getting married, even the names of your future children. And instead of this creeping you out, it's actually gonna sound nice. Because for the first time in your life, you have a man who is bringing all your wildest romantic dreams and fantasies to life. The love bomber has become your savior, who has all the right answers to all your life's problems. They're highly organized, they're financially responsible, and they're romantic. He is your Mandingo warrior and the partner you feel so lucky. Not lucky, but you feel blessed to have in your life. You have totally bought into the relationship and are willing to go anywhere it takes you. And what this means is that you've officially reached the idealization stage of being love bombed. And unfortunately for you, it's all gonna go downhill from here. So let's take a step back and let me explain what idealization actually is. Idealization is when your idea of something, in this case, your relationship with Mr. Casanova, is viewed in a way where you see it as perfect and without flaw. And this is a huge problem because in reality, your relationship actually ain't shit. You're just with a guy who can talk a good game, has good taste in fine dining, and who can slang it like a porn star. But because you're in an idealized state of mind, you've been brainwashed by the intense love you received. So you aren't able to notice the lack of depth in your relationship. And this is the exact goal of love bombing. To quickly gain your trust by showering you with attention, affection, and gifts, so that you buy into the relationship without question. Now that the love bomber knows that you've bought into the relationship, a shift happens. And Mr. Casanova has now become Mr. Narcissist. And right before your eyes, you will start to see red flags slowly start to creep into the relationship. The person you fell in love with is no longer as attentive as they used to be. They no longer romantic, and they stop doing all the loving gestures that you fell in love with at the beginning of the relationship. You start to notice this shift, but you're so brainwashed by the initial image of being in the perfect relationship that instead of addressing these developing problems, you avoid rocking the boat. Because your hope is that with time, things will return back to normal. Love bombing is especially evil because it plays on an individual's core wounds and hurts. People who commonly find themselves as a victim of love bombing are usually those who have a history of abandonment. They've rarely been made to feel important or loved in their past. You ain't shit. Making them afraid of losing what they perceive as their only chance to be with the person they perceive as their one true love. So, when this switch happens and the love stops being shown, their mind always reminds them of the good old days of the relationship and holds on to the hope that those days will eventually return. While they wait for this day to return, they become susceptible to slowly justifying Mr. Narcissist's switch to treating them poorly and become willing to sacrifice their wants and needs in the relationship in an attempt to try to fix the situation and avoid losing the relationship they've been tricked into believing is a perfect love story. And this is when we reach the second and final stage of love bombing. I like to call this the mask off phase. Narcissists are some of the biggest perpetrators of love bombing. And one thing you need to know about narcissists is that they're quite natural at making things look good. But fortunately for us, they're only good at doing this for a limited amount of time. 6 weeks to 6 months to be exact. That's how long the first stage of love bombing typically lasts. And this is for 2 reasons. Number 1, that's usually the amount of time it takes a narcissist to love bomb someone and to get them in the palm of their hands. Or number 2 ends up happening, and they couldn't hide that they were a narcissist and were exposed for the shitty person that they are. So, at this point, we've covered a lot, and you should understand what love bombing is. But that's not enough for me. I want to get real practical and help you really be able to identify when someone's trying to love bomb you. So, I made a quick list. Here are the 5 signs that someone's trying to love bomb you. Number 1, love bombers will give you an excessive amount of attention and affection. A love bomber is going to make you feel like you're the center of their world. They're constantly going to try to be in contact with you. They will shower you with compliments and are always seemingly available and will try to eat up as much of your time as possible.
No! No! No!
Why do they do this? Well, that brings us to sign number 2. Love bombers will try to isolate you. Love bombers are very possessive and will always try to be in constant contact with you as an attempt to isolate you from friends and family. Their possessiveness won't look like the classical depiction of possessiveness. Instead, they will frame their need to always be around you as them being unable to bear the idea of anyone else having time with you.
Hold on, who are you talking to?
This might sound sexy to any romantic novel-loving sucker, but just know it's a ploy. Their intention is to isolate you from others, so that you become dependent on them as your only source of emotional support. The third way to know that you're being love bombed is that love bombers love to play games. At the beginning of the relationship, love bombers will intensely pursue you with grand gestures of romance and love.
Hey, beautiful.
They do this in order to get you to quickly buy into the relationship. Once they've lured you in and they know that you've invested deeply into the relationship, they will suddenly withdraw. We therapists like to call this hot and cold behavior. Throughout the relationship, love bombers will engage in the toxic cycle of seeking you out for your attention. Then when they have your attention, they will disappear. And when you respond by trying to cut them off and hold back from reaching out, you better believe that their ass will slither back into your life and keep trying to contact you until you respond. But the games just aren't over yet, because once you give them another chance and finally reach back out, they'll go quiet again. They do this because they want to control and manipulate your emotion. They want you to analyze every message that you've sent, so you become worried about what's the right way that you can respond to be lucky enough to get a response back. They want to have the power to make you feel relieved or excited when they finally do respond, and anxious when you don't. The fourth way of knowing that you're being love bombed is that love bombers love to pressure you to commit to the relationship. Love bombers are in a rush to get you to commit towards making big rush relationship decisions that aren't easily reversible. You'll be pressured into doing things like signing leases to move in together, moving out of state so you're away from your friends and family, or something crazy like getting married within the first couple of months of knowing each other. They do this to try and trap you into situations that will be messy, expensive, and time-consuming to escape from. What love bombers know is that people don't make the best choices when under pressure. So if they can rush you into making pressured decisions, this will lead you to making choices with less intention and discernment. You aren't aware that the choices you're making today involve you slowly surrendering your autonomy and freedom to the hands of your future abuser. The fifth and final way to know that you're being love bombed. Your relationship has no real depth. One of the most obvious ways to know when you're being love bombed is when your relationship is defined by over-the-top gestures that all are superficial. When fancy dinners and getting your back blown out make up the bulk of your relationship with someone, this is when you know you're in the territory of being love bombed. Because there's no real depth in your relationship beyond these surface level gestures, all you know is that they can slang it like a porn star and they have great taste in fine dining. So let me be clear when it comes to love bombing. Of course, not all grand gestures at the beginning of a relationship are you being love bombed. Healthy relationships can have the same excitement and energy as well. But the difference between being love bombed and real romance is that love bombing is a tactic that gives off the illusion of romance, while true romance involves deep, intimate connections being formed. So you know what love bombing is, and you also know all the signs to look for. What do we do with this information? Let's say that you think you have a love bomber on your hands. How can you be certain? The answer is simple. Voice your needs.
I need you to listen to me more.
For example, love bombing is characterized by a fast-moving relationship. Go against the grain of this momentum by asking to slow things down. A love bomber has real narcissistic tendencies, so they'll tend to respond by using manipulation, trying to control and guilt you to bend to their will. This means that when a boundary is set, they will respond by becoming angry, frustrated, or accusatory.
It's you!
They'll say some bullshit like, "It really breaks my heart that you're not serious to committing to this relationship. Why am I always the one that loves more than they love me?" Or they might try to leverage your fears against you by bringing up how you're about to be 30 years old and that your biological clock is ticking. The last tactic that they might use is planting seeds of doubt, challenging why you're asking to slow things down, and validating your feelings, and justifying the unhealthy and uncomfortable pressure they're applying onto you. Now let's compare this to how a healthy person would respond to you asking to slow things down. If you asked a healthy new partner to slow down, they wouldn't become manipulative and antagonistic at all. Instead, they would hear you out and validate your concerns. The end. If you want to know more about love bombing and narcissism, I highly recommend the book It's Not You by Dr. Ramani D. It's where I got most of the information for this video, and it's going to greatly help you overcome a situation where you're being narcissistically abused. I have an affiliate link in the bio where you can buy it. If you want to learn more about narcissism, then I have a video right here. It's a comprehensive breakdown of narcissism. Other than that, my name is John Burt. Thank you for getting this far into another session. And that's all I got. I love you guys. God bless, and I'll see you guys in the next session.